What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here. It's Monday, so that means my post-game analysis video for you guys. There's a little bit to talk about, and so before I get into that, though, as I told you guys, last week, I am trying to restructure the way I do this. I rewatched the game, I took notes, and I'm trying to, consolidate things a little bit so that way the videos are not so long. So let's see how it goes, and let's get right into it. So the very first thing, of course, that I want to talk about is the injury report. The Dolphins will have every player on their active roster available against the New York Jets on Sunday. When the team released its final injury report of the week Friday, it did not include a single player listed as questionable, doubtful, or out. That means everybody is healthy enough to play. Every player on the active roster was a full participant in practice Friday, except for wide receiver Allen Hurns, who was limited with an ankle injury. Real quick, let's note that the reason why our injury report has gotten smaller is not necessarily because guys are healthier, right? There are still like 8 or something guys that were on the injury report that are playing through injuries. Not to mention it got shorter because we put a bunch of guys on IR. We even cut, some injured players, like let's say Ken Crawley just got cut, right? So it's a little bit misleading. So I'm just really annoyed by the framing. They make it seem like, and then there was, talk about how there's this, the Dolphins have really achieved, this major thing by being healthy at this point in the year. No, look at our injured reserve list. Like, are you serious? Anyway, so it's just really annoying when people put it into that framing because it's just ridiculous. Let's continue on. The other players on the injury report during the week were linebacker Jerome Baker, tackle Julian Davenport, quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, cornerback Nick Needham, safety Steven Parker, and cornerback Ken Webster. By comparison, the Jets are 13 players on their final injury report, though cornerback Brian Poole was the only one who was ruled out. Le'Veon Bell was also ruled out because of an illness. Although, look, Gase didn't want Le'Veon Bell. He doesn't like big name free agent signings. I've seen reports that he's not even really huge on Bell, and don't be surprised if the Jets end up either like cutting or trading Le'Veon Bell. And even, I can't think of the linebacker for some reason, off the top of my head right now. So I'm just going to forget about it. But, so don't be surprised if he ends up off the Jets in this upcoming offseason, because that's not what, and Bilal Powell honestly is probably better for what they want to do anyway. But anyway, so the list of players listed as doubtful was headed by Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams, who I believe did not play with an ankle, and included tackle Chuma Edoga with a knee, safety Matthias Farley with a rib ankle, and cornerback Arthur Mollett with a calf. None of the 4 practiced Friday. 8 players were listed as questionable, including starting running back Le'Veon Bell with an illness. The others were defensive line Henry Anderson with a shoulder, tackle Kelvin Beachum with ankles, cornerback Maurice Candiday with illness, quad, tight end Ryan Griffin with an illness, defensive line Stephen McClendon with knee, hip, wide receiver Demarius Thomas, hamstring, and linebacker Paul Warlow with a quad. Bell did not practice Friday, while the other 7 were limited in practice. Okay, and so let's look at our inactives, because there is something I want to mention as far as that goes. The Dolphins inactives were cornerback Lyndon Stevens, center guard Evan Brown, and defensive tackle Zach Seiler. So all of those guys were just signed like the day before, so that's not surprising. But guard Shaq Calhoun, once again, is mysteriously on the injury report. on the inactives list without being on the injury report at all, and despite the fact that he actually has been one of your better offensive linemen. Let's also note that Brian Flores fired his offensive line coach a week into training camp, in part because he wouldn't play or put Shaq Calhoun and Michael Dieter into the game. Okay? But for some reason, on multiple occasions, he's just mysteriously held Shaq Calhoun out. But he's consistently played Dieter, even though he's been terrible. He's got a bunch of sacks to his name, several penalties, including one in this game. So look, now did, you know, the only real issue I have like with the coaching staff in this game, because there were no egregious like bad calls or misuse of timeouts or challenges. The only thing is they're inactives, right? Why did they have him inactive? And Taco Charlton is also inactive, and linebacker Trent Harris, wide receiver Trevor Davis. Those are the inactives. But why was Shaq Calhoun and Taco Charlton inactive when they're not on the injury report? And that's one of your best offensive linemen. We could barely run the ball. We did have over 100 yards, but that was because Ryan Fitzpatrick ran for like 65 running for his life. But again, the offensive line was pretty garbage. Like, so why would you keep him out? And that extra, even though, you know, he hasn't been phenomenal and some of his sacks and stuff were like cleanup, Taco Charlton does lead the team. So why is he inactive? Why? Did those things decide the outcome of the game? Maybe not, but certainly if we had those guys, you know, maybe it would have been the slight edge that we could have needed, because it was a close game, defensive heavy, and the Jets barely won. So, you know, I mean, again, it's just more stuff to me on the pile of information that says this coaching staff is intentionally putting this team in bad position, right? In position to fail. It's up to you to decide. I give you guys the information, and I give you, you know, the analysis from my perspective to go with that information. It's up to you guys to decide if, you know, you believe that they're in on it. I mean, to me at this point, the amount of evidence, especially considering the fact that Brian Flores just said last week that he has say over all these fucking roster moves that he's made, or that they've made. He has a part in that, right? And he's a part of the evaluation who's been, which has been terrible to this point. The list of players that have been misses are far greater than the list of players that are potential hits for the future of this franchise. So, but like I said, it's up to you guys to make that decision for yourselves. I just try and give you the best analysis that I possibly can, and, you know, leave it up to you guys. So, now let's actually get into the stats and everything of this game, and then, you know, we'll go from there. Yeah. So, and then we'll do the analysis and everything. So the Dolphins dropped to 3-10. We are now, you know, obviously guaranteed double-digit loss season. I do think that we're going to end up hitting 11 losses for sure, because the Patriots is our last game, and it's in Foxborough, and even if they play backups, they're likely to kick our ass. So, I'm pretty sure we'll end up with 11 losses. The next two games, though, are against the Giants that's in New York, so that's, you know, a home game for the Giants, and then it's a home game for us against the Cincinnati Bengals. Those are two games that are very, very winnable. I hope we win it. That would put us at 5-11 on the season. Obviously, the worst, you know, if we ended up losing those games, then we'd be 3-13 on the season if we lose out from here. Now, obviously, if we lose out, that helps our draft positioning. If we win, it hurts our draft positioning, whatever. I don't give a shit about that. So, let's get into the stats. The Dolphins had 362 total yards. Jets had 374. Slight edge there for the Jets. We had 240 passing yards. They had 262. Slight edge for them there. We had 122 rushing yards. They had 112. Slight edge for us there. But again, most of that was because of Ryan Fitzpatrick running for his life. So from running backs, we were actually about close to what our season average was coming into this game, which is about 63 yards on the ground. So our rushing average is going to go up a bit, but it's misleading, right? Because again, Ryan Fitzpatrick was running for his life all day. We had 5.6 yards per play. They had 5.4, so slight edge to us. No fumbles were lost by either team, even though there were some. Each team had one interception. We were 30% on third downs. They were 38. We had the ball for 30 minutes and 6 seconds. They had it for 29:54, and there were 5 penalties on each team. Those are accepted penalties, so there definitely were more. We definitely had more. There were a couple that were declined, that were on us. But also, and I'll get into this a little bit more, once again, there was some bad officiating, but it mostly, I think there were like 4 instances, if I remember correctly from my notes, but I'll give you that when I get to the analysis. There were like 4 instances of like bad play calls, and most of them hurt the Jets and not us. So, you know, got to be fair, got to be objective, and got to give it to you exactly like it is. Ryan Fitzpatrick was 21 for 37, 56.8% completion percentage, 245 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns, and a 65.7 passer rating. He was, as you can see by his completion percentage, Ryan Fitzpatrick was off like all day. He was really having a tough time being accurate, but that's Ryan Fitz for you. So Sam Darnold was 20 for 36, 55.6%. Obviously, also he had a problem too, but that was partly on some drop passes. We didn't really have any drop passes, but there were definitely some drop passes by Jets receivers. But he had 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and an 86.6 passer rating. Rushing, Ryan Fitzpatrick led the way for us. 7 rushes, 65 yards, and a 9.3 average. He did actually set a Dolphins record for a quarterback rushing in a single game. But Ryan Tannehill, let's just real quick juxtapose a little bit. Ryan Tannehill has like the rookie rushing leader for a quarterback. I think he's still the leading rusher for a quarterback in Dolphins history, right? And so, but that was a lot on, some of it was because he had to run for his life for sure, but some of it was because it was designed rollouts and stuff like that. And Ryan Tannehill is really good with his legs. He's actually a really good running quarterback. And in fact, some of his best passing plays come when he's rolling out as well. But juxtaposed to this, all of Ryan Fitzpatrick's 65 yards came because he was scrambling to get away from the pass rush. But he was 765 and a 9.3 average. Patrick Laird only had 15 rushes, only 48 yards, and a 3.2 average. He is continuing to prove that he's been the best running back that we've had all season, except for, you know, I think Kenyon Drake probably is better. He just wasn't, you know, being used properly. The offensive line's garbage, blah, 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 blah. Myles Gaskin had 4 rushes, 5 yards, and a 1.3 average. I usually don't put players that have less than 10 yards. I don't know why I put that in there. But Myles Gaskin hasn't really done much of anything either, honestly. And look, I mean, just real quick, the draft class from this year is not looking very good. Christian Wilkins has been okay. Chandler Cox has been like MIA the entire season. Myles Gaskin was inactive most of the season and hasn't really done much since he came back. Let's see, Isaiah Prince just got fucking cut and the Bengals picked him up. Josh Rosen was our 2nd round pick, essentially a failure. Michael Dieter has been terrible. So again, the evaluation of this organization of players and talent is not very good, and their handling of the first draft wasn't very good. So I don't have much confidence going forward. But let's continue. Bilal Powell had 19 rushes for 74 yards and a 3.9 average. Ty Montgomery had 9 rushes, 31 yards, and a 3.4 average. In the receiving game, Isaiah Ford led the way for us, 6 of 9 for 92 yards. Alan Hearns was 5 of 8, 68 yards. Patrick Laird, 4 of 5 for 38. Devontae Parker, 2 of 2 for 28. Robbie Anderson led the way, 7 out of 11 for them. 7 out of 11, 116 yards and a score. Vincent Smith, 1 of 3, 37 yards. Ty Montgomery, 3 of 3, 30 yards. Jamison Crowder, 3 of 7, 30 yards. Demaryius Thomas, 2 of 4, 28 yards and a touchdown. Bilal Powell, 2 of 3, 14 yards. Fumbles, Ryan Fitzpatrick had 2 fumbles but didn't lose either of them. Marcus Sherrills also had 1 on a punt return. Excuse me. I believe it was a punt return, maybe it was kickoff. Either way, he dropped the ball but picked it right back up. Robbie Anderson had a fumble, but it went out of bounds, so he didn't lose it. Sam Darnold had a fumble, but it was recovered by them. Defensively, Eric Rowe led the way for us. 5 solo tackles, 4 assisted with a forced fumble. Vince Beagle had 5 solo tackles, 3 assisted, and 2 tackles for loss. Ryan Lewis, 5 solo tackles, 2 assisted, and a pass defense. Jerome Baker, 4 solo, 5 assisted. Nick Needham, 4 solo, 2 assisted, and 2 passes defense. Stephen Parker, 1 solo tackle, 1 interception for 35 yards and a pass defense. Adrian Colbert, 1 assisted tackle and a pass defense. For them, James Burgess led the way. 10 solo tackles, 3 assisted, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Darrell Roberts, 7 solo tackles. Kyron Brown, 5 solo tackles. Neville Hewitt, 3 solo, 2 assisted. Jordan Jenkins, 3 solo, 1 assisted, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. By the way, in the past, I have said that like sacks and tackles for loss were counted as the same stat, but I don't believe that's actually true. I think I was wrong about that. Just wanted to make a correction. So he had 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Marcus May, 3 solo, 1 assisted tackle, and a tackle for loss. Blessuan Austin, 3 solo, 1 assisted tackle. Steve McClendon, 2 solo, 1 assisted, and a tackle for loss. Maurice Candidate, 2 solo tackles with a pass defense. Nate Hairston, 1 solo tackle and a pass defense. In the kicking game, Jason Sanders was 7 of 8 out of his field goals with a long of 53. Sam Ficken, 3 of 3 on his field goals with a long of 44, and 1 of 2 on his extra points. Let's note that in those 2 misses, Sam Ficken's extra point and Jason Sanders' missed field goal, it was primarily because of bad snaps and mishandles by the holder. In the punt game, Matt Hawk had 1 punt for 45 yards. Lachlan Edwards had 3 with an average of 41.7, 1 inside the 20 and a long of 45. Durham Smythe had 1 kickoff return for 13 yards. Ty Montgomery had 4 for a 22.5 average of the long of 29. Punt return, Marcus Sherrills had 1 for 7 yards, and Braxton Berrios had 1 for 12 yards. So, let's get into the key points and analysis, whatever, for this game. So first and foremost, you guys know the thing that I look at is did we win this game? No. Obviously, we did not win this game. Were we competitive? Not really, sort of, kind of. The players definitely played hard, and it was, the Jets are not very good this year, and they got a lot of, internal conflict in the organization, and they have a lot of players that are massively injured. Okay. So, important context there. And so, going up against not a very good team that is, massively banged up and in fact did get, victimized yet again by officiating. At the end of the day, the level of competition was kind of right, at best. It was definitely a defensive heavy game overall. Both offenses and defenses did struggle overall though, because both offenses were able to move the ball, but both offenses were really unable to cap drives. Although the Jets offense did slightly better in that. They did get 2 touchdowns, whereas us, for us, it was just nothing but field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. Both quarterbacks definitely had accuracy issues, like I mentioned before. And like I said, it was 2 bad teams that were playing against each other. So, take that for what you will. Some interesting points of interest. It's kind of redundant to say interesting points of interest, but it is what it is. Dolphins had the ball on their own 35 early in the game, right? In the first quarter with 8 minutes and 49 seconds left. There was a 3rd and 2, it was a 3rd and 2. And on this play, Myles Gaskin had a run. It was blown up in the backfield, and the Jets were called for a face mask on this play. Now, the call was absolutely fucking terrible. Why? Because the Jets defender, when you look at the replay, the Jets defender, he had his hand, it did hit him in the face. Myles Gaskin, it hit him in the face for sure. However, his hand was open. It was a flat, open hand, and all it did was basically just slap Myles Gaskin in his face mask, in his visor. That's it. He didn't actually grab hold of the face mask. He didn't pull him down by the face mask. None of that. It was a terrible terrible call, but it did end up extending a drive that I believe ended up in 3 points for us. Another point of interest, the Dolphins later on had the ball on the Jets' 47-yard line. It was 3rd and 11. With 11:37 left to go in the third quarter, there was an incomplete pass that was thrown way short. So, you know, from Ryan Fitzpatrick to, I want to say it was like Mac Hollins or something. I can't remember who the receiver was, but the Jets were called for a pass interference. Now, when you look at the replay, again, the pass was way underthrown, so you could argue that the ball wasn't even catchable. So that's a reason not to call the pass interference. But then if you look at the replay, the Dolphins receiver was trying to go back and get the ball, but as he did so, he runs into the Jets defender and basically fucking like hugged him and took him to the ground. It was just a garbage. If anything, it should have been offensive pass interference. But again, the ball wasn't really even catchable, so it should have just been a no call, period. But they called it. It was a terrible call. Gave us a lot of yardage, right? Because it was a spot foul. It was way down the field. And it extended a drive. Yet again, extended a Dolphins drive that ended up in 3 points, right? So moving on, next point of interest. Jets had the ball on their own 22nd yard line. 3rd and 11, 4:56 in the third quarter. It was a short gain on a throw from Darnold. Jerome Baker was called for a face mask. Now, the reason why I bring this one up is because this was clear, super clear. Clear and obvious, right? And even Jerome Baker knew it at the end of the play. He got up and slammed the ground. He was frustrated. He knew. The commentary called it immediately. It was clear and obvious, right? You could see it in real time, super quick. But when you actually look at the replay, it was a clear and obvious face mask, in part because Jerome Baker grabbed the bars of the face mask and pulled on it, right? Clear and obvious. Clear and obvious, right? So I point that out really just to juxtapose to the other face mask penalty that was called earlier. And let's note, though, the reason why the rule is written so that way you are able, because the rule is written that where you can, you know, you can put your hand on the face of the player as long as you don't actually grab the face mask, the bars of the face mask, right? So as long as you have an open hand, the reason why it's like that is because offensive players, receivers and running backs, whatever, if they go to stiff arm, you're able to put your hand in the face of the player, right? You just can't grab it. But an offensive face mask penalty would be called, and has been in the past, in fact, called on us recently, where if you grab the bars of the face mask, right? So that's why I point that out. Next, the Dolphins had the ball on our own 47 yard line. It was 1st and 10, 8 minutes and 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. There was an incomplete pass to Mike Gesicki, but on this play, the Jets were called for a roughing the passer penalty. It was first down in that case, but it did end up extending a drive and gave us, 15 yards, but it was a shit call. Again, so there were 3 instances in my notes here, not 4, where it was all bad calls. All of them were against the Jets, right? And hurt the Jets. Because Ryan Fitzpatrick was hit in his midsection. He didn't go, the defender didn't go low and take out his knees. He didn't go high and hit him in the fucking face. It was right in the midsection. Right? If anything, as the tackler, and you can see it on the replay, as the tackler was tackling Ryan Fitzpatrick, around his midsection, like the crown of his helmet maybe like skimmed the fucking chin strap of Ryan Fitzpatrick a little bit, right? Like as he's going into him, he kind of like, the momentum of the player pushed him like up the body of Ryan Fitzpatrick a little bit or whatever, and the top of his helmet touches like the bottom of Ryan Fitzpatrick's chin. But he clearly got him around the midsection, right? So just yet another terrible call by the officials, but one that hurt the Jets. Now, obviously those, but that goes to the level of competition, right? So it's not a very good team. They're massively banged up. But to be fair, we're not a very good team overall, and we also are massively banged up. We have a super long injured reserve list. Players are playing through injuries, but they got victimized by officiating, and unfortunately the team and the players were not able to overcome it this time, although they were certainly close. Just another quick point of interest, Ryan Fitzpatrick is kind of a bumbly runner. He's definitely fun to watch and has a passion and excitement that is definitely fun. But when he runs, man, like he's always off balance. He's always tripping and stuff like that. He also has some really good runs, but he often does that. And he did that a lot in this game. But you don't see that from Ryan Tannehill so much. When he runs, like he's really good at RPOs and figuring out when to keep it. But he's really he's good at design rollouts and play action and stuff like that. But you don't see that from Ryan Tannehill so much. But Ryan Tannehill is also willing, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, both the Ryans are willing to do this, to put their shoulder down and drive for it, right? Like I said, he did set a Dolphins record for most rushing yards in a single game, but like I said, it was also in large part because he was just running for his life all day. There were also a lot of young players that had penalties in this game, mistakes, blown assignments, etc. But that is to be expected when you design the team to be that way. Jason Sanders set a Dolphins record for most field goals in a game. He was one shy of tying an NFL record for field goals made in a game. If he would have made the 8th one, he would have tied the record. But like I said, with that, it was bad snap, bad hold by the punter. By the punter, and so who's also the holder, Matt Hawk, and so it was missed. And frankly, that field goal could have even given us the game, right? We could have won the game off of that field goal. So that that probably has as much to do with it as, let's say, the coaching staff deciding to hold Shaq Calhoun and Taco Charlton out, right? Did those inactives cause us to lose this game? No. But they were stupid. And certainly having your leading sack artist on the team, the player who leads you in sacks, and one of your best offensive linemen holding them out of the game certainly adds to why this team was not able to overcome. But also let's note that, right, so on the last drive for the Jets, right, they didn't have any timeouts. They had like a minute and a half left to go, and there was a Dolphins player that went for, first thing I want to note, there was a Dolphins player that went for a pass deflection and ended up letting up a long gainer, right? The Jets just got the ball back. They started like on their 25-yard line, and they got a long gainer almost, all the way from like the 25 to field goal range, close, a huge chunk, because a young player tried to make a play when he should have just gotten the tackle. He should have just gone for the tackle and not tried to do too much. But again, those are mistakes made by young, inexperienced players, but that's expected when you design the team to be that way, and that falls firmly on the shoulders of the front office, Chris Grier, Marvin Allen, Reggie McKenzie, and Brian Flores, because he accepted the philosophy of tanking and helped, by his own admission, to design the team in the way that it's been designed. Okay? And so it is what it is. And of course, that was obviously by the direction, the demand of Stephen Ross. But then let's also note that even after that, we did have an opportunity. We got like a couple stops. We even, got them to lose some yardage, dropped them kind of out of field goal range a little bit. And then Nick Needham gets a pass interference call, right? And initially it, in real time, full speed, it looked like it was really close. It could have been, a good no call, but on the replay, and they did actually, because the call on the field was an incomplete pass. But it was under 2 minutes, so it was a booth review, whatever, right? No challenges, so the Jets couldn't challenge it. But they did review it, and then they did overturn it. Why? Because when you looked at the replay, and he didn't need to do this, right? Nick Needham, as the receiver was going to make the play on the ball, and as he was going to make the play on the ball, Nick Needham grabbed the right shoulder pad of the receiver and pulled it and turned the body of the receiver. That is a pass interference. Now, Brian Flores, yet again, threw a hissy fit on the sideline. This is the one that I'm going to defend him on the most. The previous ones were just absolutely ridiculous, right? No reason for it, and because he was just completely wrong, right? One example I'll give you is there was a 4th and 1 play in a previous game. There was a design rollout by Ryan Fitzpatrick, which was a terrible play call to begin with in that situation, especially because, well, I mean, he's not good at, I was going to say especially because it was a run to the outside, but he's not good at quarterback sneaks either. So having Ryan Fitzpatrick run the ball in that situation is just not a good idea, period. But he rolls out and he was short. He got tackled short. The ball, when his knee went down, was clearly short of the line to gain. But he throws this huge hissy fit, and then everybody's like, see, that's what we want out of our head coach. What, so you want him to throw hissy fits for absolutely no reason when he's wrong? He was wrong, right? He got irate for nothing in that situation. This is the one I'm going to defend him on the most. Why? Because it was late in the game. Your team is up, you know, blah, blah, blah. And in real time, it looked close. It looked close. But on the replay, he really didn't have any reason, right? And I said during my live stream, I was like, look, man, if they overturn this, I can't hate on it because it was enough. He got enough of a grab and a pull on the right shoulder pad of the receiver that it hindered his ability to make the catch. It was a pass interference. They end up winning the game on a late field goal, and it is what it is, right? But so, you know, he should have looked at that and been like, man, you know, as much as I hate to admit it, it was a pass interference. I just got to coach my guys up. Instead, he throws a fucking hissy fit and gets all irate. But the only times you've seen him do that, from what I've seen, I mean, obviously my eyes haven't been on him the entire game for every single game because I'm watching the players on the field, and frankly, they just don't have a camera on Brian Flores 24/7 throughout the games, or the entire time, right? So obviously I can't see him, but the only times I've noticed it, the only times the cameras show him, and the only times the commentary talks about it, and the only times, therefore, subsequently the fans and so on so forth talk about it, is in situations where he really didn't need to throw a hissy fit at all, where he was just flat out wrong, or in this case, I mean, you can't hate on it, bruh. You can't, because it was a legit fucking penalty. So instead of throwing a hissy fit, just be like, fuck, man. God damn it. Pull Nick Needham aside, talk to him, you know, be like, dude, you didn't need to do that, whatever. And then, you know, take that responsibility on yourself and be like, I just need to coach my guys up. Instead, hissy fit, hissy fit, hissy fit. So, you know, it is what it is. As far as injuries go, we definitely trended down in that direction. Both Albert Wilson and Devontae Parker came out of that game with concussions. But, you know, those, while they are definitely serious injuries, head injuries are always serious, it's also an injury that they could come back from, you know, relatively quick. So both guys have potential to play next week. It just depends. We'll have to wait and see on whether or not they are able to, you know, come out of the concussion protocol. Bright spots in this game, there weren't really that many. Jason Sanders, mostly just because he scored all of our points, all 21 points, and he did set a Dolphins record, you know, for most field goals in a game. He did miss the one, which, you know, could have cost us the game. That definitely could be something that you could point out to as a reason potentially why. You know, I would say the biggest reasons why we lost this game were because the missed field goal by Jason Sanders, the Nick Needham pass interference, and you know, holding Shaq Calhoun and Taco Charlton out. I'd say those are the three biggest reasons why. But again, you know, even like in Nick Needham's defense, young players are going to make that mistake when you design the team to be that way. Steven Parker had his interception. It was beautiful. So, I mean, you know, it's a bright spot, I guess. You know, I mean, he hasn't really done much. But it was a good play by him. You know, he hasn't done much for us overall, but it was a good play by him. It was definitely a beautiful interception. Nick Needham, he does continue to show consistently, but, you know, he kind of negated his good plays in this game by having that really costly pass interference penalty. And then Isaiah Ford. You know, he's been elevated because of, you know, like Jakeem Grant being put on IR and us losing receivers. And, you know, especially since Parker and Albert Wilson both came out of the game. He had 92 yards, and it was definitely a career game for him. But that's really it. So that's the bright spots. Now, real quick, I do want to talk about, to end this video, I do want to talk about some of the other games that happened, and then, you know, draft positioning and so on and so forth, because it is relevant and it is important and what have you. So let's get into that. As it stands right now, the Dolphins still have the number 4th overall pick, and we have the number 22nd and the 23rd overall pick from Pittsburgh and Houston. So why is that? So let's see. Just real quick, the Giants did... the Giants and Eagles are upcoming, so that's tonight's game. Excuse me. Let's see. What's notable? The Packers beat the Redskins 20-15. So that, because of that, that leaves the Washington Redskins ahead of us in the draft order, because we're both 3-10, but they have a slightly easier strength of schedule going down the stretch, and so they still remain ahead of us 1 spot. Let's see. Also, though, notable, the Vikings beat the Lions 20-7. The reason why that's notable is because the Lions are 1 spot behind us. They are currently picking at number 5. So depending on how the rest of these games go, let's say we do end up 5-11 and beat the Giants and the Bengals, that could push us, that could, you know, and then depending on obviously how you know, Detroit plays, if they lose more games, and then Arizona is right after them. Both of those teams are 3-9-1. So, you know, if those two teams lose, you know, 2 out of their 3 next games, and we win 2 out of our 3 next games, then both of those teams could easily jump us. In fact, a lot of teams could jump us. The Jacksonville Jaguars are currently at number 7, 4-9. The Falcons are at number 8, 4-9. Jets are at number 9 at 5-8. And the Chargers round out the top 10 at 5-8. So the top 10, the most wins by any team in the top 10 is 5 wins. So if we get 5 wins, we could easily end up, especially if some of those teams end up losing more games, we could end up out of the top 5 in the back end of the top 10 still. Now, again, we have to wait and see how the rest of the games play out, but it is notable. The Broncos, though, did end up beating the Texans 38-24, which did drop the Texans' pick from 25th to 23rd overall. So that's interesting. They definitely do need to, you know, get their shit together if they want to fucking, you know, hold on to their division, because the Titans are really starting to, you know, push them. Now, the Titans and the Texans are both tied at 8-5. But both of those teams, or they play each other twice still, right? Out of the next 3 games. I think they play each other next week, and then I think they play each other again in the final game of the season. So that is going to be massively important to determine whether or not one of those teams, to determine which one of those teams ends up taking the division. Now, you know, there's a lot of ways that can go. I mean, if Tennessee wins both of them, they'll probably take the division. If Houston wins both of them, they'll probably take the division. If they split the series, then that last game, the 3rd game, will determine which one of them ends up taking the division. But one of those teams could still likely end up in the playoffs. So even if Houston does manage to lose the division to the Titans, then they could still end up making the playoffs in a wild card spot. So again, we just need to wait and see how that works out. The Ravens beat the Bills, which dropped the Bills to 9-4, but they do end up usurping the Texans because they are 9-4. The Texans are now 8-5. The Browns beat the Bengals. So, you know, another Bengals loss helps to assure that they're going to keep that number 1 overall pick. The Chargers beat the Jags 45-10, but like I said, that puts the Chargers at number 10, but then the Jags are at number 7 at 4-9. So they could potentially jumping us in the draft order. The Steelers beat the Cardinals 23-17. So that moves the Steelers up to 8-5 and helps to push them towards their potential playoff berth. which obviously would hurt our draft positioning in the pick from them. And the Cardinals lost, which puts them at 3-9-1. They currently pick at 6, and that gives them the potential to jump us, our first overall, you know, our first pick in the first round. They could potentially jump us. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, the Titans beat the Raiders 42-21. So just really quick, I want to talk about this because once again, now Ryan Tannehill, I think now is 6-1 as the starter for the Tennessee Titans. Okay, he was 21 for 27, 391 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. The interception was super unlucky. It was a deflected pass from the line at the line of scrimmage that just kind of fell into the arms of the defender. It was super unlucky, but then when you look at the play, Ryan Tannehill was the one that tracked the dude down and like truck sticked the defender to prevent the touchdown. I think the Raiders ended up scoring a touchdown anyway, but it just goes to show, man, Ryan Tannehill's a fucking boss, bro. He's definitely a great quarterback. He's definitely above average. He's definitely great, and he's showing why the Dolphins were yet again stupid to get rid of him. And because he's pushing that he is leading that team to push the Texans to potentially drop or to make our draft pick better and take over that division, right? And he's leading them to a fucking playoff push. And the argument that Ryan Tannehill sucks because he needs a team around him is absolutely fucking absurd. It's the dumbest fucking argument that I've ever heard. For one thing, his stats throughout his entire career prove otherwise. The Dolphins records and NFL record he holds prove otherwise. His consistent improvement proves otherwise. Is he good at RPO? Yes. Is he good at design rollouts and play action? Yes. Is he good at throwing on the run? Yes. Can he hit all of the throws? Yes. Deep passes included? Yes. Is he good with his legs? Yes. Is he good at making adjustments at the line of scrimmage? Yes. Can he elevate the team? Yes. He's done it. Like 4 of the games that he's won so far, he's had come from behind victories. So he's kicking the fucking shit out of things. Anyway, so, yeah. So that's what it is, man. I mean, but hey, and then the Chiefs ended up beating the Patriots 23-16. So that's just a lovely day in the world and in America. So, look, guys, it is what it is. That's how I'm going to end this. I hope you guys enjoy my videos and my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Make sure you share my channel and my videos with your friends and family. Make sure you leave your comments, questions, and concerns down in the comment section. And, of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins up.